Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Eastern Border. Today we have a good day. I posted earlier my final account on what my aunt did in Russia. That's for free for all patrons, by the way. It just shows like weirdly up on Patreon, but I did not charge anyone for it. But I thought I would need to bring you some news today because some of them have truly messed up situations happening on the front lines, and some of them have written weird stuff. And as you seem to enjoy this, here we go. There are news, and then there are, well, a lot of wankery by the Z Patriots. We have a whole post dedicated to a fake Z poet as a work of anti-war conceptual art, no less. This one, written by Andrei Zakharov, who's very much a war correspondent type of guy, but he's just a real human garbage, to be honest. He writes, quote, 100 Duma deputies and a couple of dozen senators, in air quotes, befriended a fake Z poet who passed off German Nazi poems as patriotic. The Z public is constantly worried. They say that little attention is paid to poetry praising the heroes of the special military operation. They don't draw proper attention to it. That's why our people, that is, Russians here, go to naked parties instead of weaving camouflage nets after work. Their poems don't inspire them to do the deed. But on the other hand, go to the page of Vkontakte to the Z poet Gennady Ratkin. In this, he's made a lot of friends, almost 100 deputies of the State Duma and about 30 senators. So the authorities are interested in patriotic literature. So there's a chance that people like Ratkin will finally replace in our book the enemies of the people and other fellow travelers. The authors of the anti-war project, Gennady Ratkin, of course, would like their poems to eventually make it to the stores, but they no longer have the strength to lead it. Because Ratkin does not exist, and all his poems, which the deputies and senators liked so much, are translations of poems from Nazi Germany in the late 30s and early 40s. Here, for example, is the poem The Leader. You are like the gardener who is in his garden, reaps the fruits of hard labor. The people rejoice, flags in their heights, sword, the time's quietly coming. That is an artistic translation of the poem The Führer by Ebenhard Müller, a convicted Nazi and anti-Semite who became a member of the NSDAP before Hitler came to power. Ratikin's poems have been reprinted by Z publications, and he has certificates from Z poetry contests. Isn't this just the best news ever? It's just amazing. I had to start this because I managed to accidentally damage my television set, and that was sad. But then I read this, and the day just got so much better. On the other news, once again, the author Voyenkor Katyonak, I think you know this guy by now. I've been quoting him a lot of times. He writes about the main unsolvable problem of the Russian army. The Ministry of Defense lies all the time, and the front is desperately short of men. Quote, here they write again, citing some confessions of Ukrainians that, quote, the occupation of the village of Krasnogorovka, the village, if it's a town, by the Russian armed forces is already a matter of time, since the AFU units in this direction are already too exhausted and the main part of the settlement is already controlled by the Russian army. 2 months ago, roughly the same channels wrote enthusiastically and completely about the decisive advance of the Russian armed forces in Krasnogorovka, as they did 3 and 4 months ago. Just for a minute, we have been storming this town in the Donetsk agglomeration for at least 6 months with mixed success. There have been advances, but there have also been losses. The losses are considerable, and perhaps the main obstacle to serious advances of our forces in this, as well as in other areas. And that's not a secret. Apart from the active defense of the enemy and often frontal actions of assault units, is the lack of personnel. And in Krasnogorovka, and at Karlivka, and at Yasnobrodivka, and many other places, which are just thinning platoons and squads, we go forward, doing combat work for whole companies. There are known cases everywhere, where 2 or 3 stormtroopers attack the enemy's strengthened positions, where there are 3 or 4 times as many or more enemy soldiers. That is, Ukrainians, who are, well, just literally outnumbering Russians, because apparently the mobilized at this point are starting to feel like a breed that's going extinct. That's from me here. But really, the biggest complaints about that from Russian mobilized side is the fact that they're all, well, worn out and dying and just out of everything. Carrying on from the article, fire points, firing sectors, communication passages, shelters covered by minefields. The enemy would feel quite comfortable in the defense near Donetsk if it were not for the FOBs with UMPKs and these stubborn Moskals. They climb and climb forward, spinning onto the medical advantage of the enemy, contrary to all the laws of military science. Well, just noting here, he puts that as a praise, but if you know your army is just failing miserably and just not doing anything which proper warfare and proper tactics call for, well, yeah, then you're a bit of a losing side after all. Carrying on. And such cases are not just once or twice, but dozens, if not hundreds. These are the conditions in which the storming of enemy positions takes place. At Donetsk, the Russian army commits mass heroism, in which in most cases is not noticed neither by the media, nor by the high command, nor by the public, nor by anyone. And that's the way it should be. Amazing times, metaphor Morses, however. Once again, don't run ahead of the locomotive. If you look at Krasnogorovka, then indeed the days of the enemy's control over the city are numbered, but every meter there is given to us with colossal labor and blood. And how else if advancement of 100 meters per day is considered a great success? So here he comments on Russian army's useless meat assaults. It's just that they have a lot of people. But at least I've heard reports straight from the front stating that finally the artillery shell hunger is over. The United States weaponry has finally come and arrived, and, well, right now Russia has an advantage in meat, and we have the advantage of meat-grinding rockets and, all sorts of missiles which do nice and horrible, bloody things to the occupiers. Recently, by the way, the Z-Space was very excited by a speech by former Prime Minister Stepashin, who bluntly said that the Russian military is scrounging. Indeed, they are scavenging, and the process is going badly and getting worse every day. The levies are falling in the absence of REBs, which are countermeasures for drones. The only defense against these drones is volunteered supplied rifles. Even just binoculars and fortifications the Russian military is building at its own expense and with the help of volunteers. And we have a lot of comments on this part. Archangel of Spetsnaz writes, quote, "Dear friends, the gathering is up and not going. We ask you to support us as much as possible." NGP Razvedka, with a big Z and V letters, writes, "In 25 minutes, only 12 transfers came in for a total sum of 3,794 rubles. That's about $300, approximately. Maybe less, wait. No, that's $30. Sorry, that's just $30, approximately, 31 or so. The collection rate has fallen below the lowest minimum. We all understand, summer vacations. But let's throw it as much as we can, whether it's 10, 300, or 1,000 rubles. Or don't. I recommend you don't, but hey, it's just me. Only amicably we will be able to help the fighters as quickly as possible." And then we have Moses, who reports from the front, who writes, "Friends, here are real Ukrainians, and they collect huge sums in a short time. Why can't we?" Well, let me just chill a bit here, because this is the perfect moment. We have a site up there in Fourth Wall. You can find it by a link on our homepage, theeasternborder.lv, and if you click the button there, it'll take you to my merch shop. And in my merch shop, there are stuff which is with the Club of Angry Patriots logo, because we still remember our good old buddy Girkin, and we sincerely hope that he comes out and, opens his mouth and starts talking once again. And all the proceeds from those hats go straight to the Ukrainian army. Yes. And also you can support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/theeasternborder, or just click any donate button on the Eastern Border website and help me fix my TV, please. That would be very nice of you. But yeah, shilling over, but just saying. Carrying on with the news. Most of the hunting battles and ammunition for them are delivered to the front, which is not easy, by volunteers. Arguing about the effectiveness of shotguns against drones is pointless, because in the absence of REBs, it's the only thing left. I have already urged the giants of our armory, Tula and Izhevsk. Those are the places where Stalin moved the whole, industrial production in the World War II. I have contacted them to think about supplying shotguns to the front, targeted deliveries. But a friend wrote from near Kherson, "There have been no deliveries, and there are none, and they see shot down drones only on the internet. And the unshot ones are overhead constantly. which is, well, as a fellow drone pilot, I say to my Ukrainian comrades, I really hope to see you in the racing circles after the war. I am pretty sure that we are in no competition here, because I pretty much bet that all the FPV drone racing circuits are going to be overtaken by Ukrainian pilots. And, well, you might see them in Vegas, where they hold the big money exhibits, because these guys are just going to rampage through this. So they're going to be like Schumachers or anyone else in the F1 pilot circles. These guys are going to be great. But carrying on. And then, well, we have to add, okay, arms factories, capitalists, businesses. But the Rosgvardia annually seizes tens of thousands of illegal guns, which are subject to destruction. So maybe it's better to the front than to be melted down. Written by Khorokov. Dear ideological comrades in arms, to you, address is already familiar. To you, Russian fighter with the call sign KN Yaz. We ourselves are moving to the forests to fulfill further tasks. There we equip the dugouts, a bathhouse, a house for living, duty and communication, a canteen, a farmhouse, and so on. We do everything with our own hands and with the necessary tools, including those that we purchased with your help. The dugout has already been erected, but the bathhouse and the house are very important. We have difficulties with it. I appeal to you with a request to help in purchasing prepared timber for the construction of these structures. All this will be used to improve the lives of soldiers in the front and will allow us to continue to liberate the native Russian territories and recreate our Russian Empire. Written by the channel Sons of Monarchy. So, extremely far right neo-Nazis who probably enjoyed the first author's poems from 1940s, obviously. The author of the major Z channel War Gonzo, by the way, and this is so that you don't feel too comfy here. This is for all the ladies listening to this show, because I think this is gonna touch you personally on a level that other studies don't happen. Because here we have War Gonzo. He discusses what he calls trench whoring, frontline Santa Barbara, and a modern Russian or Ukrainian woman's place in the war, which is a bit sad study. A woman in a war is like ship. Expect trouble, especially if it's a relatively young, fertile person. Trench fuckery is doubly fuckery. First, because it takes place in insanitary conditions, and second, because the whole trench home to how to build your love on the front lines thing is a terrible distraction from the war. Let's say a woman gives sympathy to one of the commanders and moves into his dugout. This immediately creates inconvenience. After all, the soldier needs access to the commander around the clock. He must run into the hold and report the situation, and not look into the dugout and see there sleeping spread out Skittles, forest milf, or nymph, depending on how lucky the commander is. Admittedly, such an unspeakably beautiful sight will not contribute to a quality report. Just amazing language this guy, War Gonzo, uses. Then the commander, on a whim, begins to shift duties of his beloved to other soldiers, rather than anger the remaining soldiers and put their lives at unnecessary risk. Then his feelings for his wife make him protect her from all sorts of troubles, just shelling, and he, having lost his vigilance, gets wounded trying to fight his way to the neighboring regiment and cover her with his body. He's then taken away to the hospitals, which we, talked about last episode, where, apparently the conditions there are just horrible. She remains alone in the commander's dugout and grieves. The freshly appointed second in command moves into the dugout. He too could be killed at any moment and wants to live a rich and full life, and he is just as incredibly pitiful, with all the consequences that entails. And in a month, the former commander returns after hospitalization, and Santa Barbara becomes completely crazy and dangerous. Desperate people, not afraid of anything, and no one, find themselves extremely close to each other. There are lots of guns around, and everyone knows how to use them. It's a wild mix. But sometimes I think that some women are even aroused by this arrangement. On the other hand, the other option, deceived and rejected lover, taking advantage of his position, begins to rival people and work through them by the unspoken rules of the Russian army, turning his life into hell. And where previously there were brotherly and comradely relations, nastiness flourishes. Injuries in the command staff, by the way, are not uncommon. So in such a tangle of contradictions, 5-6 people usually get involved. And this affects the combat readiness of the units. That is why soldiers don't like whores. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to hear some comment about, it must be really difficult for someone just to be in the front line. I really don't know why these guys are even taking up any relationships. Then again, this war has gone over for more than 2 years and people just want to live on normally, but this all is just so bizarre. Lieutenant Colonel of Rosgvardia, Zakhar Prilepin, or how I like to call him, Prilep Zalupin, which is a very rude way of mispronouncing his name, which I do intentionally because I hate his guts completely. Well, he is of the Russian Rosgvardia, and he's also closely following, guess what, the American election campaign. Oh, yeah. This is the first time ever in the recent period where I get to talk about your elections. And as a side note, I watched Trump-Biden debates, and let me tell you that no matter who, this is kind of like watching Alien versus Predator. No matter who wins, we all lose. This was the most miserable experience I've had in my life, watching these things, and I don't even know. I think Democrats should change their candidates. And Republicans should change their candidate. Everyone should change their candidate, have a third party or so. I don't know. None of these people are fit to rule anything. They cannot even run their own household, much less the whole United States of America, which is a country that I actually clearly love because I've been there multiple times. Most of my listeners are from there. You guys, and I've spoken to various supporters of both Trump and Biden, and my attitude. I don't like to stick my nose in these things, but these debates, they were ungodly and awful. And well, although I think that Biden technically won only because he didn't lie, that's a very low margin because he would have lost to literally everyone else who was able to put two sentences together. But I digress. That really changed my mind, and it destroyed my day about how horrible everything was about them. That was just pure nastiness in concentrated form. But I'm going to go back here and give you some insights on what Zakhar Prilepin of Lieutenant Colonel of Rosgvardia thinks about all this mess. See, Lieutenant Colonel Prilepin does not consider Trump to be his own and believes that for Russia to win, a Noam Chomsky study chair and work with the black population are vital. Yes, I mean, those are the Russians saying this. This is great. And I quote him here. Trump will prolong the war. Trump will not give us Kherson nor Zaporizhia, neither Kharkiv nor Odessa nor Kiev. To bargain with America, to solve the Ukrainian problem once and for all, and all the other problems they will never get tired of creating for us. We need not just to fully enter Cuba, Venezuela, Bolivia, Brazil. We need to stagger America itself. We have to work with Alaska. I wonder, what does he mean? I mean, I'm pretty sure people in Alaska still, they actually want to remain part of America, and I'll get a bunch of comments in the email and in the Discord, which you should join. Links are everywhere. If you can't find one, email me, theeasternborder@gmail.com, and I'll just send you the link. It's just that I wonder how all these ultra-patriots, nationalists, they really just want to grab Alaska. They've never been to the States. They have no idea what they're getting into. But carrying on, we have to open a chair of Noam Chomsky studies in Russia and popularize him all over the world. We have to work with the black population of the United States. And here goes a shout out to the Secret Police podcast because, I live in Latvia. I don't have many black friends except him and the guy that lives upstairs from me, and he plays for RFS football club. It's just that, I don't have many local black friends, but I know quite a few black people, and I wonder how interested would they be of going to Putin's Russia and just focusing on all that stuff. That's so weird. But carrying on, because this is just amazing. Only from that moment on, we will begin to turn into full-fledged opponents of the United States. But now we wait for a blow, and only then we react to it more or less clearly, and we play only on our territory. Only on our own territory. Well then, Americans, I hope this entertained you, because I found this amazing. Our good friend of the show, well, nemesis. When I say friend, I mean a person that I would like to choke until they, choke until they die and pass out and go to Hague. If they died, it doesn't matter. But, it's Anastasia Kashevarova. I've spoken a lot about her. She wrote a series of posts about the Russian military command sending disabled people to the front. Well, let's just make this episode offensive to everyone equally. I've offended women, black people. Let's get down to the disabled people. I mean, they comment on every possible way, and they just destroy everything, and they just show how much Russian army does not give a damn about anyone, especially if you are, well, woman, black, or apparently disabled. She writes that these are not isolated cases, and she provides proof of what Z authors have been writing for about in a lot of recent months. Russia is catastrophically short of people at the front, and Putin simply cannot do mobilization. Quote, I didn't want to publish this, but this problem is already systematic. I don't know what bloggers and war correspondents are reporting to the defense minister, but this problem has not been solved for quite a long time. These cases are not isolated. We are solving them manually, but unfortunately we do not succeed in all cases. I cannot watch our guys on crutches die and remain silent. And the culprit here is not the minister, not the president, but the specific command, specific people. Well, obviously she cannot say anything about Putin or Belousov, who's just an amazing guy by destroying Russian army, but still happening. It's just stupid. About 50 soldiers of the military unit 52562, 74th Tank Division 26th Regiment who are waiting for operations. These guys have the category of fitness G and the prescription for a 45-day leave. In violation of the instructors of the medics, these are sent to the front line. Now they are on the second line, but they have already been announced that in the coming days they will be sent to the positions on the front. I'm not publishing the video so that Ukrainians don't savor it. I've seen the video by this. It's literally people with crutches and missing arms and legs, and they're being sent in meat assaults. Just saying. So, yeah. But you can see everything on the screenshot. Guys with crutches, with plastered limbs. What will they do on the front line? This is not a problem with medics and VVKs, which is Военно-воздушная команда. Although there are such problems too, I'm not hiding it. This is a problem with specific commanders who don't care about doctors' instructions. But I like to say to Mrs. Koshavarova that, no, it's a problem in the Russian army and it will never be solved, and you are doing a pointless work. But, it is what it is. About referrals to hospitals and surgeries already planned. They load guys into cars by deception, assuring them that they are taking them to the command for some documents and vacation, and send them to the front. Why? What will they accomplish there? Absolutely nothing, which is good news for us. What is this image of turbulent activity? What incredible value does a fighter on crutches have on the front line? I understand maybe not feeling sorry for specific people, but turn on logic, turn on practical considerations. These people on the front line are simply useless. Give them a chance to heal, to rest, and they could be useful. Will never happen. Like I said, Russia cannot win this war. If the West continues its aid to Ukraine, victory of Ukraine is guaranteed. At least to the point, when I mean victory, I mean getting all their territories back. I doubt there's going to be any conquest of Russia because that will be unnecessary, as soon as Ukraine just gets its territories back, Russia will just collapse on itself. I am now 100% sure of that. I gave it 90% at the beginning of this war. Now I give it 100% chance. No way. I am utterly correct, and I'm ready to put money on this. And let me remind you that we had a bet back when I was a man on Twitter with the Martyr Maid, Nara Cooper, that, we argued about who's going to win the war. And we made a stupid bet where I bet $200 and he bet 7 times more because he was so assured that Russia would win, which means I'm standing to win $1,400 United States dollars, for which, as we win, we're going to have a massive Eastern border party in Odessa. There's going to be enough of a party in Crimea, but like I said, Crimea is one thing. Odessa, now that's where the beauty is at. Odessa, mama, and I love that city. Just saying. I'm gonna inform you here. But carrying on from Ms. Koshavarova. After I published the situation with sending the military on crutches to the front line and the command of the military unit 52562 in Mulino is doing it, there were more reports about sending untreated, mobilized and contractors to the front line from the Samara region and from other regions. Pegetar Shitsky, Samara region, he's my native. Here are sent to the front 2 people with iron for bone fusions. This is what stands. This is what has become of our Russian fighter at the bus with the inscription "Special Military Operation." I can't show faces because the guys don't hide them. This is the attitude towards Russian men, which is just insane. And of course, Z Channel 2 Majors, another favorite of this show, publishes a letter of a military officer from the Zaporizhia front, like direct news up from what's happening out there, and in which he complains about the quality of personnel. It turns out not only the people whom Z authors mix, not only they got the wrong people, also the military. Quote, on the phone, platoon commander from the Zaporizhia direction. Many times I have seen how the soldiers of different units appealed to you and blamed their commanders for all the troubles, and in the comments all unanimously supported them. But no one really, for some reason, asked the question, maybe it's the personnel of the unit who are assholes. A month of training in the training school, then classes with instructors in Crimea, a lot of offers to take courses in UAV, TACMED, engineering training, until they were sent to the front line. And in the end, the man of 30 years old comes and saying, I do not know how to do anything. Teach me. Show me. By doing so, he jeopardizes the entire personnel of his unit because of his indolence. People are thrown from anywhere for reinforcement, and you have to take this same asshole with you for reconnaissance, and he's louder and more visible than an elephant, although he's dressed as special forces because the whole village collected funds for him. You decide to use a drone for reconnaissance and correction, and the asshole just wanted to try, and in a matter of minutes, just crashes down and explodes. And let me tell you, flying FPV drones takes a lot of effort. It takes about 10 to 20 hours in a simulator with a real controller to get the grasp of it. And, Kendra knows I've flown this in Texas, and the other people who've seen me fly. That takes a lot of effort to become skillful, especially when you have to lead this into a war. There's a reason why I, for one, with all my accreditation documentation, a lot of people have asked me to fly my drones. I don't allow anyone to do that because they will just crash it. It takes effort and skill and research to know how to do it properly, because crashing them is super easy, especially FPV drones, which can't hover. They don't have obstacle avoidance. They are loud. They literally, you have to focus on that stuff. It's not easy at all. So when someone's messing up and I just wanted to try, yeah, that is the dumbest thing ever. It's kind of like giving a 5-year-old driving your own sports car, because it's the same level of incompetence. But hey, that's what happens. Carrying on about his complaints. You tie with a rope a mobile anti-drone REB station on a Becha is their army jeep, and don't turn it on with the words, I thought it works as it is. So they attach this and don't turn it on. And you have volunteers ask you later, how's the bird flying? How's all the combating things? Yes, everything helps, everything's fine. And I'm not even talking about the ones we put in the pit. There's a lot of them. Learn, men, while you're given time, because later it just might be too late. But now I want to finish this episode on something beautiful and special, although I'm quite happy about all of this that I've done today. See, the head of Chechnya, Don, Professor Ramzan Don Kadyrov, has spoken harshly about the words of Bastrykin, the chief of Rosgvardia internal commissions, who called for an urgent ban on the wearing of niqabs in Russia. And here I quote about his humanity. Obviously, Ramzan Kadyrov did not write this text. Ramzan Kadyrov right now is just too busy dying from kidney failure and putting his kids all over, high command wherever he can. But here we go nonetheless. Quote, Bastrykin recalled the recent terrorist attacks in Rostov and Dagestan and called their perpetrators Islamic terrorists. I would like to tell Alexander Ivanovich that he should be extremely careful in such statements. I have repeatedly said and emphasize again that Muslims have not committed and do not commit terrorist attacks. At the same time, I very much hope that Bastrykin will not henceforth compare Islam with terror, Kadyrov wrote on his Telegram channel. Bastrykin, by the way, is the absolute idol of the Z public at the moment. He says out loud what they write about in their Telegram channels. It's impossible not to defend him. But Ramzan Kadyrov, you see, he's not an easy man at all, and utterly idiotic. How can you argue with him? But a way out has been found by the glorious Russian man. In another Russian history lesson of glorious victories, we found that in the two texts that the Z channels most often circulated, Kadyrov's words are simply attributed not to Kadyrov, but to his anonymous aides. Which is quite true, but they have to find a way how to criticize Kadyrov without criticizing Kadyrov and supporting Bastrykin at the same time, and it's just hilarious. Two Majors writes, Kadyrov's speechwriters separate the concepts of Islam and Islamism. Bastrykin has said everything clearly. Islam is a religion, and Islamism is a religious and political ideology. It is not good business to be hitting on Bastrykin. And Alexander Ivanovich writes, not for business to those who run the Kadyrov 95 Telegram channel, who started criticizing Alexander Ivanovich. The fact is that he, as an old lawyer, well, very clearly sets the accents and does not go beyond the context of migration and dragging into Russia alien ideology and a religion of aggressive Central Asian deformed Islam into traditionally Orthodox regions and cities. So, in this case, it's the channel Kadyrov 95 with such a statement that has an extremely bad effect on the socio-political situation of the country and does not help cohesion and unity, but negatively attunes non-Muslims to the indigenous peoples of Russia who profess Islam. And this was by Roman Nadekhin. So, I hope this made you happier. До свидания, товарищи. And as always, remember, happiness is mandatory. Helen, please help me get a new TV. It was horrible.